Hey guys, this is Scott with Heritage Farms, Texas. Well, hey, thanks for joining me today. Today we're working on a little new project. And so, if you've watched some of our videos, you know that we specialize in cattle. We raise Simmental Angus cattle, registered, and also some commercial Angus cattle. But in addition, we put in a pecan grove, a relatively small one for a hobby farm, but still an 8-acre pecan orchard. But one of the things we're thinking about is how to expand and how can we do additional things to generate revenue streams down the road when we retire. And one thing we're thinking about is getting into selling pecan trees that are actually container grown, so that people that are interested in hobby farms and putting a few pecan trees around their place can get started. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about growing pecans from seeds. That's right. And what we're talking about specifically is taking some pecans. And if you look through here, in this little bucket right here, we have native pecans. And these are guys that basically mature trees that are probably 100 years old that we went out and found some of the pecans off of those trees. And we got them in here. This bucket right here, we actually have some of the improved varieties, some of the paper shell. So we got these off of pecan trees that we know are paper shell pecans. Okay, and you're saying, well, what's the big difference? Well, we can get into a whole nother video on grafted versus non-grafted trees. All of the trees in our pecan orchard are grafted trees. They're Pawnee, Oconee, Choctaw. There's a lot of different variations that we have, Kansas. But what we have here, native pecan trees are what you really want to try to use for your root base, because native pecan trees can withstand drought, they can withstand cold temperatures. They've just survived for decades upon decades, so it's an excellent rootstock with a native pecan. Paper shell pecans are a little bit newer, a little bit more of a hybrid. But everybody wants the paper shell pecans because they're so easy to crack. They have the nice big kernels. So we're kind of taking a combination of the two. Now, what a lot of people do is once they plant a native pecan tree and it gets up, 4 or 5 foot tall, they'll come in there and cut it off, and then they'll graft on a an improved variety, which we'll do some videos of that later down the road. But what we're doing today is a process called stratification. We are getting our seeds ready to germinate and plant next spring. So here it is. It's basically the end of October. So what we've done is we've started a process called stratification. And what that is we have soaked these pecans overnight for 24 hours in water. And what you're doing is you want that pecan or that seed to actually pick up moisture and hold moisture. We're then taking vermiculite. I always have trouble pronouncing that. We just got this down at the local box hardware store. It's fairly inexpensive, but it helps improve soil aeration and drainage. It's a fine grade, excellent for seed starting. Perfect for germination of seedlings and plant cuttings. Reduces soil compaction, so it's airy, it gets real light. You can kind of see what this stuff looks like. So what we're going to do here is, and you can see I've already kind of started the process. I've got a Ziploc freezer bag, and I have 50 native pecan trees, put the date on here, 10 and 19, and we're actually putting these in piles. So we're going to start here with about 500 container grown pecan trees. I'm probably going to do about an extra 10 to 20% of seeds, just in case some of these don't make or don't take. I've got a little extras that we can kind of go from there. And we put them in these bags, put the vermiculite in there, and then we're going to put them in the refrigerator. I know my wife is so happy about that. Luckily, it's the beer refrigerator in the garage, and she doesn't go there very often. So we're going to put these in the refrigerator, and we're going to leave them. So they're going to sit there November, December, January, February, March, and maybe April, depending on what the weather is. At that point in time, we will actually take these out of the vermiculite. We'll wash them off, clean them up, and then we're going to put them back in 5-gallon buckets of water. What we're going to do at that point is we're going to speed up germination. When we put them back in the buckets in the spring, we're going to put an aquarium fish pump in there to aerate the water. We're also going to put an aquarium heater in there to bring the temperature up to 90 degrees. And then we're going to leave them in there for like 48 hours, changing the water out, getting all of the nutrients or whatever was left in these pecans. We're getting them all out, and basically after 48 hours, those pecans will actually start to crack, and you'll see a little bitty seedling or a little bitty root start to come out of these pecans. At that point in time, we're going to plant them in some small containers. Basically, think of a red Solo cup, but maybe taller because they have a tap root. We'll punch holes in the bottom of the cup, and then I'll show you what we're talking about. Hold on one second. Of this cup, and it will be full of good potting soil. And what we'll do is we'll punch holes in the bottom of this cup, several holes. And what'll happen is that root, that tap root, will come down through this cup, and it will actually start to grow out the bottom. When it starts to grow out the bottom of this cup, we will know it's time to transplant this into a 3 or 5 gallon nursery pot. That's a very tall pot, but very skinny, because really it's all about the tap root at this point in time. Now, when we build these, or when we fill them in the spring, we're actually going to use something similar to this metal mesh, maybe a hardware cloth or something, but we're going to make some rows, and these will be stacked in there, basically side by side, if you will, in rows. And as that root comes down, it will come through the grate on the bottom. When that happens, we know that it is time to transplant, and when that cup is not getting root bound. So that's the plan, and that's kind of what we're doing here today. So I'm just going to show you the process here real quick. Set the camera up, bear with me. Houston, we have a problem. All right, sorry about that. Amateur hour here at Heritage Farms, Texas. All right, so let's go ahead and plant some of these. Or I should say, let's bag some of these. So we take our bag, it's already labeled, native pecans, and we're gonna put 50 of these in here. $41, $42, $43, $44, $45, $46, $47, $48, $49, and $50. And then we're gonna throw 10% more in, another 5, come up with 55 in that bag. At this point, we're gonna take some vermiculite, throw us about 2 good handfuls in there, maybe a little bit more, and voila, it's just that simple. Get all the air out of the bag. Flop them over, shake them up a little. Get a good mixture, coat them all. And that bag is now ready to go in the refrigerator. So anyway, that's the plan, guys. The Heritage Farm Pecan Nursery container business is underway, October 2019. Hey, if you guys have any questions, comments, please leave any comments or questions below. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button and tell us what you think. Anybody interested in pecans, let us know. And you know, from the time you plant them, you're probably looking at, honestly, 8 to 10 years before you can really get pecans, but it's a great deal to have, something to do with your kids, a heirloom or a legacy for sure, for generations to come. And besides, if we don't make the change, odds are nobody will in the future. So man, plant some pecan trees. It's a great way to improve your property. It's a great way to have some fun. And man, they sure taste good also. Anyway, hey, this is Scott with Heritage Farms, Texas. Thanks for watching.